Hi, welcome to another week of Abbie Thoughts, and we are still same old, still in lockdown, and it is what it is. It's just like the new way of life. 2020, the first year of quarantine. So the first major news I noticed this week is the Premier League's coming back. But it is coming back, and the season will restart on the 17th of June with Aston Villa versus Sheffield United and also a Manchester City versus Arsenal game. So a full fixture list will then be played on the weekend of 19th to 21st of June. So yeah, first two matches back on the 17th, and then everything just kind of goes back to normal from the 19th of June. There's still 92 fixtures still to play, so they're just going to push on. And they stopped the league on the 13th of March. So what's that been? Like March, April, May, like 3 full months. And 12 people did test positive for coronavirus. They did like 2,752 tests across the league, and 12 people were found to have it. And from what I can see, they haven't really published who those 12 people were. But going forward, they're saying that Premier League players and staff will be tested twice a week, and that games will now take place behind closed doors. But yeah, it is officially coming back. But like I say, as a non-major football person, I'm not sort of for or against. I guess to all the fans out there, people I know who are super fans, I guess this is good news. So yeah, it's coming back 17th of June. And then the second thing that I found really interesting this week is the difference between a myth and a legend. So a myth is a story that's not based on fact. It's just completely made up. It's symbolic storytelling. It's not really, it's just something somebody made up. Whereas a legend actually contains some facts, but it's just a story that's become slightly embellished or exaggerated. So like the legend of Robin Hood, there was a Robin Hood at some point in history somewhere around Yorkshire, but then over time people have just sort of added bits on. But like it does seem that he was this helpful kind of English gentleman knight type who was trying to help people, but was he doing all the things like we think that he was doing? Not necessarily. So a legend always kind of has an element of truth to it. There are some bits about it that are true. That person likely existed, but then we've just added extra bits on top that like they were flying through the night on a broomstick kind of thing, which is unlikely to be true. But I just found that so interesting because I always thought they were kind of the same thing. But like a myth, you can take the example of like Icarus, which is a story I heard a lot when I was a kid, about this guy who sewed some wings together and then attempted to fly, and it was working, but then he flew too close to the sun, burnt the wings off, and he fell to his death into like an ocean. And I've used that, myths are still useful, even though they're completely made up, because it's symbolic storytelling. So there's a lot of truth that can be gained from a myth, and they're quite, what's the word, like enthralling, engaging. You want to listen to them to find out what happens next. So I do love that story of Icarus because I've used that so many times. Like I'll say like, oh, I guess I flew too close to the sun. Just you get carried away sometimes. You just get on a roll and you think you're winning, and then you just take it too far, and then you plunge to your existential death. So I definitely feel like knowing that it's a myth is a good thing, but I won't give up on myths quite yet, even though I do like facts. Something about symbolic storytelling is also really powerful. And then there's the legends. Like another good legend, I think, is the Lady Godiva story, of her sort of not being happy with what her husband was doing with taxes, and he sort of said, well, I'm not going to change him. You'd have to ride naked through these streets on a horse for me to change these tax laws, which she then chose to do. But King Arthur, that's another good legend. So like there's some really good legends, people who actually did exist. But if you've got any good myths, any good legends that you want to share that we should be reminded of, I'd love to hear them now that you know the difference. So in other statues coming down news, a statue of President Theodore Roosevelt, which was in front of the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, is going to be removed. So the statue features the American president. He's like the 26th American president, and the statue has him on a horse with a Native American man standing on one side and an African man standing on the other. So very inappropriate in today's climate. And yeah, I had a look at the statue. It's so triggering. Like, it's just ridiculous. I don't know whose artistic vision this was, but and the museum sort of said that, you know, they're happy to sort of bring the statue down as it communicates a racial hierarchy that the museum and members of the public have long found disturbing. And yeah, I couldn't even be bothered to Google how racist this guy was. I don't know if he was like racist in his time racist, which is like he owned slaves and he was on that kind of tip, or if he was like above and beyond doing some extra racist stuff on the side, because you get those as well, who it's like you didn't need to take it that far. Like, everybody else was on the racism train, but you sort of shot it out into space for no good reason. So yeah, I just think that having seen the statue, I'm like, ugh. It's not the best, especially in today's climate. And several US states are trying to figure out how to remove their own Confederate monuments and other controversial statues. So I think that's really good, because it's such a weird concept to be walking around, especially in a country like America that really is supposed to be about all, you know, it doesn't matter what you look like, and there isn't a historical people that owned that land, if that makes sense, unless technically you want to say actually it's Native Americans, so really it should be the Native American on the horse and Theodore Roosevelt on the left saying thank you, or shooting him with an arrow maybe, or a musket, and then the African man on the side saying get me the fuck out of here. So yeah, I think it's, especially in America's case, that they do need to kind of have a day of reckoning with their beloved statues. And the final story I was covering this week is about how BandAid is now going to be expanding its product line to include bandages with a ring of skin tone. So there's going to now be darker shades, so that if, you know, I cut myself, I'll actually have a bandage that matches my skin tone, so I don't have some weird beige thing around my finger or whatever it is. And now that I know, I actually thought they already had like darker skin tone bandages. So now that I'm realizing, now that they're announcing that they didn't even have that, I'm just ashamed. Like, you had the 90s BandAid, like that was your season. You could have, you know, like Michael Jordan was around, all these black celebrities were around. What was stopping you from thinking, hey, why don't we launch like a black skin tone bandage, you know? Like, what's taking you so long? So I like that there's other companies that were already providing bandages that reflected the skin color of other people, not just white people. So there's a company called True Color that apparently was already supplying skin tone bandages, other skin tone bandages, and I'm sure there's others if you Google it. So yeah, that's a full week of Abbie Thoughts, and I should be back in a week to talk about whatever else has happened since then, and leave me some comments. Thank you.